Come join me today as I fly Sunexpress on their Boeing 737-800s from Manchester to Dalaman and back to see what this airline has to offer. There isn't much online about Sunexpress, and what there is up isn't the greatest, such as a case back in 2022 when a crew member on Sunexpress found a snake's head in a meal. I'm a bit skeptical about today's flights, but at the same time I'm also very excited to try out this new airline for myself, hopefully without any snakes. If you don't already know, Sunexpress is a half Turkish and German low-cost carrier based in Antalya, Turkey, as a joint venture between Turkish Airlines and Lufthansa. The airline aims to deliver most flights to holiday travellers, connecting them from large European networks to their main Turkish holidays and hubs such as Dalaman, Antalya and Bodrum, whilst competing with other carriers at the likes of Corendon, AJet, Pegasus and other European budget carriers. In this video I'll fly from my home airport in Manchester to Dalaman and back to cover as much as I can about the airline, so without any further ado, let's go to the airport. My first journey starts in Manchester Airport's Terminal 1. Back to another video. Today we'll be flying Sunexpress to Dalaman from Manchester Terminal 1. There's not much online about Sunexpress, so I'm quite skeptical about the flight, but I'm very intrigued as well at the same time to find out what it's going to be like. So let's head in. Once entering this terminal at Manchester, I was greeted by a chaotic crowd of people looking at the screens, not knowing where they were going, and queuing up for one out of the 3 daily Emirates A380 flights that leave Manchester, even though that I don't think Manchester should be able to handle it, but more on that later. The screens didn't say what check-in desks were for my flight, and so after some walking and asking around, I found out that the Sunexpress check-in was in a rather weird place, with you having to go to a smaller area where the Jet2 check-in desks are. Not only this, but the check-in desk didn't even have screens, making it difficult to tell that it was for my flight. All there was a small sign to the entrance of the queue with the airline logo and the destination. On the bright side, check-in wasn't too busy and was quite quick. After check-in, I headed into security, where I was glad I had booked fast track as the normal line was chaotic. I've said it many times before, but I've always found it worth to use fast track at Manchester as it's usually really disorganised and crowded. I paid £5.50 per person for the fast track, however prices can differ depending on the terminal, time of day and whether you use it for security, passport control or both. I then breezed past duty free and made it to the huge window overlooking the apron, which to be honest is probably one of my favourite places to plane spot because of the close-up views of the aircraft taxiing by. I sat down in the restaurant Giraffe, where I had an amazing view of the apron where I could see many of the aircraft taxiing past, and lucky for me, there were 2 rare Atlas Air 747s which were exciting to see. Along with Planespotting, the terminal offered a good amount of shops and restaurants, but was very busy, and so it was hard to find seating around, and you can see how old the terminal is becoming from the wear and tear. Terminal 1 at Manchester is set to close soon as part of the Manchester Airport Transformation Programme. Since the end of summer, airlines began to move over to Terminal 2 due to its increased capacity and newly built Pier 2 and refurbished interiors. Upon Terminal 2's completion in 2025, 80% of passengers travelling through Manchester will use this terminal, with Terminal 1 being set to close after being open for 63 years, ever since it was first opened in 1962 by the Duke of Edinburgh. My aircraft had actually arrived a bit early, which meant that we had a good chance of leaving before our scheduled departure time. After my aircraft had landed, I made my way to gate 24 where my aircraft for today, Tango Charlie Sierra Oscar Papa, was parked. This Boeing 737-800 is one out of 57 in the Sunexpress fleet and is 20 years old. Yes, you heard me, 20 years old. The aircraft was originally delivered to Ryanair in February of 2004 before being flown by Sunexpress in Germany and then Turkey in 2019. Getting to gate 24 was quite weird as you had to go down some stairs and back up again because you had to go under the arrivals hallway.
But once arriving at the gate, I saw that it was very empty, and once on board I saw many empty seats and rows, which was a positive as myself and other passengers could move around for some extra space. Now let's board the aircraft. Upon boarding, I didn't receive a welcome from the crew that didn't really seem bothered. I made my way to my seat, which was 9F with a nice engine view. On board, I could see how the age of the 20-year-old aircraft was beginning to show, from the look of the seats and the old-style radios and the armrests, which of course didn't work. Despite Sunexpress being a low-cost airline, the seats were relatively comfortable and offered a small recline, which is good to see on a budget carrier, as not many offer this. There was also a medium-sized tray table and a seat back pocket with both a safety card and a board Sun Cafe menu inside. The menu prices were relatively reasonable, included choices for both hot and cold food and drinks and many snack options. Unfortunately, after settling to our seats, we remained on the ground for just over an hour due to a technical problem which was later fixed. This followed by a further delay due to congestion in the skies above Europe, and this led to us losing our takeoff slot, which meant that we had to remain on the ground until we got another one.
Delayed because the traffic over Europe is very busy right now.
By the time we pushed back, we were about an hour late, which was reduced a bit by the aircraft arriving early, but we were still quite delayed. Whilst we waited taxis to the runway, consider leaving this video a like, and while you're at it, also don't forget to subscribe and turn on post notifications as it helps the channel out a lot. Once airborne, the crew handed out the meals to those who had pre-ordered them about half an hour into the flight, which is relatively fast. You can pre-order meals on Sunexpress through your booking, along with having the option to choose where you sit and to purchase a larger baggage allowance. I purchased fried chicken, which cost me £13, and I found it to be worth it considering the flight was 4 hours long. The meal looks a bit old but tasted good, and also came with sides of coleslaw and a beautiful chocolate mousse that gave me some nostalgia from when Turkish Airlines used to serve this in economy on flights to and from Manchester when I was younger. There was also a warm and crusty bread roll along with some butter and wooden cutlery. The meal was prepared by Turkish Dough & Co, which also makes Turkish Airlines' award-winning catering. On the downside, the meal didn't come with a drink, so I had purchased a Cappy apple juice drink, which tasted like any other apple juice you'd find anywhere else. Altogether, I would recommend purchasing a meal on Sunexpress as the meal tastes pretty decent, but also bear in mind that all the meals are prepared in Turkey and are flown to the destination for the flight back. This can make the food taste not as fresh on the way back, but we can compare this on my next flight back to Manchester. I also forgot to mention that before takeoff, the crew also came around with some children's activities, which is really good, especially on a budget airline. Some full-service airlines even hand these out on long-haul flights. Now I come to the crew. I had very inconsistent opinions about the crew, and you'll see it get better on the next flight. But don't get me wrong, they are very friendly, but I could also sense that they sometimes could not be bothered with certain things. On this flight, I found them to be better than the next one, and after telling them about my passion for aviation, they were very happy, and even brought me a packet of M&Ms for free. Now to test the crew a bit more, me and my cousin decided to do the infamous Points Guy call bell challenge.
From the Points Guy, and I'm going to be ordering a Cappy juice. See how long it takes. I feel so guilty doing this.
I've been waiting to do this challenge for so long now, but I've always felt very guilty pressing the button, but I thought it would be a really good way to test out the crew on this flight.
Can I please have a Cappy apple?
Yeah, that's service too.
Okay, thank you.
16 seconds.
Fast. They got basically 16 seconds.
Yeah, but he got stopped on the way right.
It's alright. That was quite fast actually. Played for a budget airline.
There are 3 lavatories on board this 737-800 shared between 189 passengers, which on board seemed decent as there weren't many queues and clear signs showed whether the lavatory was occupied or not. Inside they were very tight, just like most of the 737s, and didn't have much amenities. However, they were kept relatively clean for the duration of the flight.
We found this empty row. There's 3 seats are empty, so me and Musty are sitting in them. And we've got a really nice engine view.
The rest of the flight was very calm despite some turbulence, and the flight was not full, so me and my cousin moved to an empty row for a bit. Sometime after, the seatbelt sign was turned on as we descended into a warm and sunny Dalaman. I love the views during this approach, and I think it's highly underrated as you see the beautiful green mountains all around, and you can sometimes even get a nice view of the coast depending on which direction of the runway you land on. After landing, I managed to have a talk with the captain, who was extremely friendly, enthusiastic and open about his job. He also liked to keep us, the passengers, informed during the flight and during the delay at Manchester, which was very helpful and kind. Dalaman Airport was very empty, and I whizzed through passport control and headed straight into baggage claim, which was all kept very clean, and the airport was very modern. Fast forward some time and I'm back at Dalaman Airport, but not yet sure if I want to head back to the UK. Upon arriving, the international terminal is quite busy, but is nowhere near as busy as I've seen the airport before, as it usually peaks during the late night hours when most cheaper and budget airline flights operate. I headed in and passed security at the entrance, which is normal at pretty much all Turkish airports. Check-in was a little busy and had a longish queue as there were only 2 lanes open, but I'm sure more would usually be open towards the peak times.
From Dalaman Airport. Today we're flying once again on Sunexpress on the 737 back to Manchester. So just checked in here in Dalaman and we're heading into passport control now. Let's go.
Check-in was relatively quick and the staff were quite strict, especially with the baggage allowances, but all was good and I headed into passport control, which was a breeze despite only a handful of booths being open.
Two weeks ago I did fly on Sunexpress, come here to Dalaman, and I had quite low expectations for the flight, but I was actually quite surprised with the airline. It's quite decent, but to be honest the flight was quite empty, so I'm excited to see what this flight will be like, because I have a feeling it's going to be a little more busy.
Duty free was really neat and clean and offered a relatively decent amount of shops and many restaurants. However, the prices were outrageous, with a small fast food meal for one person costing me £19. After a quick bite, I literally ran to the gates to Planespot for a bit, which included me spotting a Turkish Airlines A321 and then discovered the potential livery.
Now, Dalaman Airport is a very small airport at the south coast of Turkey, and it serves that kind of touristic areas, along with Dalaman and Bodrum airports. It's very small, but it is very modern actually at the same time.
It took a bit of time for my aircraft to arrive into Dalaman due to a late departure out of London Gatwick from where it was coming from on its prior flight, and then I headed to the gate. My aircraft, Tango Charlie Sierra Oscar Bravo, was an 8-year-old Boeing 737-800 which was delivered to Sunexpress in 2016. It was parked up alongside a Wizz Air A321neo which was heading to London Luton on a double jet bridge gate, with one jet bridge on each aircraft, meaning that the Wizz Air A321neo has to complete boarding before our aircraft could begin boarding, so that passengers do not become confused on which aircraft to get on. Upon boarding, I didn't receive a welcome from the crew that didn't really seem bothered, and I made my way to the same seat as my last flight, seat 8F, with the beautiful engine view. The seat, although being noticeably newer, was very similar to the last flight, but I found the older one to be more comfortable. The seat had the same recline and tray table but had no proper seat back pockets, which is a huge letdown as it reduces the amount of storage in the seat. There was a similar area to a seat pocket, but it was for the in-flight menu and safety card, and I could barely fit anything else inside. Very quickly, the crew closed the door and we pushed back and had a very quick taxi to the runway. The taxi was a little too short, as when we arrived at the runway, the cabin was not ready for takeoff and the crew was still checking the cabin, so we ended up holding for some time before we spooled up for takeoff. flight was pretty much a copy and paste of the last flight. I'd pre-ordered the same meal, which was the exact same, but had also purchased the same apple juice, some Haribos and a bottle of water. I think with Sunexpress competing with other budget Turkish carriers such as Anadolu Jets, or now known as Airjet, along with Pegasus and Corendon, I think that they should give out free bottles of water, especially on a medium haul international flights like this, as on my Anadolu Jets flight last year, every passenger did receive a free bottle of water, and that was on a domestic flight. The crew on these flights were very friendly, but I could really see that they were not bothered, and during the flights they were all camping in the rear galley for some time, and only came out about an hour before landing to check that everyone was wearing their seatbelts due to some heavy turbulence. Not long after though, the sun began to set and we began our approach into Manchester. Quite a rough landing, we taxied to our gate and the Manchester airport nightmare began. If you didn't already know, Manchester Airport has 3 daily Airbus A380s arriving into the airports from Emirates. These flights are always packed, and you would think that an airport that knows that it has full A380s arriving should be prepared, but it's not the case with Manchester Airport. Long queues then affect passengers on other flights as they have to spend ages waiting in the unorganised queues. For me, passport control was chaos along with baggage claim. The normal passport control queue was about 40 minutes long, as most of the people arriving into the airport were families with young children. Thankfully, I managed to make my way through the e-gates, which got me through in a matter of minutes. Unfortunately, yet again, I headed into the biggest chaos I'd ever seen in an airport, as hundreds of passengers stood waiting for their bags in baggage claim. This brings me onto a whole other topic with regards to this airport. I've flown into Manchester countless times, and I cannot remember a single time I've got my bag quickly. The staff are always taking so long, and not only can they not be bothered, but they're understaffed and also underpaid. This chaos isn't only in arrivals but also in departures, where the queue for all the Emirates flights go all the way across the check-in hall and sometimes even outside the main building and into the car park. Terminal 1, which is one of the bigger terminals at Manchester, handles approximately 11 million passengers annually, opposed to the 2.2 million that it was built to handle when it first opened. The terminal's old and literally fall into bits, along with being overcrowded the majority of the time. On a positive thought though, once the new pier for Terminal 2 is completed, the airport will begin to move airlines over from Terminal 1 to Terminal 2, as they begin some long-awaited renovation as part of the £1 billion transformation programme that the airport is going through currently in order to make the airport a better place to fly out of. Thank you for watching this video and I hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to see more, then don't forget to subscribe along with turning on post notifications so that you know when I next upload a video. A like will also be greatly appreciated, and on that note I'll end the video here. Once again, thanks for watching and happy travels.